Okay, it's the next day. Still freezing cold, but we're like 50 degrees in here. So we are going to work on stripping all, take the carbs off. We'll get all the sheet metal off. Generally just clean it up a little bit. I'm mainly doing this so I remember how everything goes. It's been a while since I've had this apart. So there's what we have. And I'm going to get all this stuff off here, or most of it off. And I want to check the lift of the cam, make sure I don't have any damaged lobes or anything crazy going on like that. And I may do a leak down test just to play with my new toy. So anyway, I'll bring you back after we get some of this stuff stripped off here. Okay, we got all the sheet metal pulled off here. Well, most of the sheet metal pulled off. I started soaking down the exhaust with some penetrating oil. Just out of curiosity, I went around and did a leak down test on all the cylinders and got over here to number 4. So it's top dead center on number 4 cylinder. And this is a cheap Harbor Freight leak down tester. To be honest, I've never used one before, but following the directions, I have it set, and with it plugged into the cylinder, it's showing we're up here at like moderate leakage, but every one of them's pretty much been consistent, and I don't hear air pouring out. Plus, you're supposed to do this with a warm engine. Obviously, this thing's been out for a day, so it's not warm. So I don't think I have any major problems there. One of the purposes for this whole endeavor was when I put this engine together back in the 80s and tried to make it run, I had problems where the push rods, almost like the push rods were too long. So originally there's rocker stands under here, and I'll show you in a little bit, but I had to shim the rocker stand so I could adjust the valves. Well, I found out later that these heads have been cut a bunch of times, that you can buy base gaskets that go underneath the cylinders, and that's what I did. So there's a thick copper base gasket at the bottom of this cylinder that raises the cylinder up, which gets the head up to the right spot, and I was able to take the shims out and adjust the valves. But what I don't know is these heads are different. There's 2 different heads on here, and I didn't check the deck height or anything, so I may have 2 different compression ratios in this engine. So I want to pull the heads off and actually measure the deck height, and I can buy shims to go under the cylinders to compensate for that. So that's kind of the whole goal of this thing. So that's what we're working towards. Okay, back on the Porsche today. Got the engine out, got the sheet metal off. I'm going to bore you with that. Put the engine cooling tin, cooling fan off of it. Kind of left that all assembled. Exhaust off. So we are going to work on pulling the heads off. You can see, if anybody's familiar with the VW Bug engines, this is nothing like it. Totally different. It has a kind of a Hemi head. We'll see that when we get it off. Rocker arms, rocker stand. So anyway, I'll just set you down and you can watch me pull this apart. I hope I got all the correct tools ready. Been a while since I've done this, but it's pretty simple as I recall. Okay. set this all down in order. And I will reassemble it back on the stand once we get it off. But I guess those are 15 millimeters as opposed to 17. Okay, I am going to, that's not good, that is the kind of O-ring that seals the head, or yeah, keeps the keeps the oil where it belongs on this side, not on that side. I'm going to put all these pieces back together so I don't forget where they go or get them mixed up. I'll bring you back when we're ready to pull the head off. Okay, it's all back together. I just laid it in the valve cover for now. Pull the push rods out and lay them right here in order. I believe they're 10 millimeter. Yes. Okay, and I'm just gonna start, wow, that was really loose. Start around the outside. That's not good. All these around the outside, I mean the ones on top are kind of out in the elements, so they're a little crusty. Alright, there we go. That was a little bit stripped, but it should be fine. Okay. Okay. That's like a really hard O-ring. I thought there were O-rings underneath, and that's what sealed it. And that's probably why they felt loose, because that O-ring is disintegrated. These have not been off here in about 20 years. And these bottom ones, you see the rocker stand. That's why they're different. That's where it attaches. So that's one of the lower head bolts, and that is an O-ring. Is supposed to be around that. Well, there's part of one there. Guess it pushed up out. Anyway, obviously I'll get new ones there. Pretty sure I can buy either a top end kit or buy them separate. It's been a while. I think these things only torque to like 20 foot-pounds anyway. Alright, I'll pull these out and bring it back when we pull the head off. All the head bolts are out. And the last time I had this apart, I had the heads checked out and I put new push rod tubes in it. Because guess what? It was leaking, I'm sure. I'm sure they were still leaking anyway, and I have a feeling all the push rod tubes are going to come with the head, but well. So there they are. Yeah, that little deflector needs to be in there too. That's what cools the bottom of the cylinders. So, you see that? It's the head. I'd say number, that would be number 3. I would say it wasn't running the best, a little rich maybe. Number 4 looks pretty good, and that's what an exhaust valve should look like. And I believe these engines do have sodium-filled exhaust valves. So, and there we go. This is a big bore kit that I put in 1986, which makes this supposedly a 1720. The problem I had when I put it in is I was not able to adjust the valves. It's like everything was too short. And when I took it apart, there were washers underneath the rocker stands down here to raise all this off the head to make it where you had some lash adjustment. So, not knowing much better at the time, I put the washers back. I never did run right. I was able to adjust it. I read somewhere that you could buy cylinder base gaskets for heads that had been cut, fly cut, whatever. And since this engine is kind of unknown origins and it's made out of different pieces, like you can see, this head is a later one that had smog control. Like, I think they had an air pump and injected air in the exhaust to clean it up. This side has the spots, but they were never done, so it's going to be 2 different heads. Anyway, to combat that situation, I read you could buy extra thick base gaskets, because there's no head gasket on these, but there's a copper base gasket right there. So I went to the Porsche dealer, and at that time I found the part number. You could buy extra thick base gaskets. So I just shoved 2 of them in there and put it back together, and I could adjust the valve. So I was happy and went from there. But what I never did do is check my deck height. So I don't really know what the compression ratio is. So what I want to do is do some work and try to get the compression ratio on my deck height where it's supposed to be, and get both sides the same, so I could have 2 different compression ratios in this engine side to side. So that's the goal of all this, is to check that out, and that's where we're headed. So I will bring you back when I'm doing something other than pulling parts off. I'll get the other side off and we'll go from there.